Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Sports Forecasters podcast. As always, I am your host, Nathan, and of course, our Nick, our second host, or maybe he's the first host. I'm the second host. Depends on the day, I think. Anyways, Nick, you're in Florida. How's Florida?
Fabulous weather. Couldn't ask for better days here. Lots of sunshine, 70 plus degrees. It's very nice here. And Ohio, I heard, just got its first significant snowfall of the year. So it's sounding like it's fun there too.
Very significant snowfall, even though Findlay was a little bit freezing, so we didn't get too much. But where you're from, a little bit further north in Ohio, I heard they got quite a bit. So yeah, you got to dodge that. So good for you. So anyways, we are wrapping up the new year here. Well, not the new year. We're wrapping up the old year going into the new year. And by the way, guys, we're recording this live. So if there's any technical difficulties or we make any bloopers, just forgive us, laugh it off, and we'll move on as we always do. So first off, let's start with kind of the biggest news this week. Passing of John Madden. Unexpectedly, right now we don't know how he died or anything. He was 85 years old. The winningest coach in NFL history to coach at least 100 games. So obviously an icon, not only on the field, but just off the field as a broadcaster and obviously the video game and everything. So, Nick, this was a guy that was really, big in the broadcasting when we were much younger. So to any listeners out there that maybe are a little too young to remember John Madden, Nick, what do you remember most about him?
My first experience with John Madden was always him and Pat Summerall broadcasting games on Fox, and just I don't know, they just were the right combination. John Madden had all of his phrases and sayings and emphasis on words that he would have, and Pat Summerall would be that calm, soothing voice. So the mixture of the two was very almost like a serenade of some sorts in some regards when I'm watching football as a kid growing up and just starting to learn to love the game and learn about the game. And then when him and Al Michaels took over on Monday Night Football, that was just like one of the best combinations of Monday Night Football of all time. I haven't heard a better one yet, but I'm sure given time someone will come about. But it was definitely, he was an icon without a doubt for the game. He transcended the game of football. And then when you get into the video games, the number of phrases out here on repeat, it felt like, because limited recordings and no online data to kind of replenish it. It's just like, it's definitely sad. And he'll be missed.
Absolutely. And I don't really remember much with him and Pat, but what I do remember is with him and um, Al Michaels on ESPN, or at the time ABC Monday Night Football. I just remember that iconic "Are you ready for some football?" Intro, and then get Al Michaels and John Madden. I was such a little kid when they were on, and I just remember whenever the Dolphins would play Monday Night Football, my parents would make me take a nap after school, so I was allowed to stay up for the game, and I would just get my little frozen cup and put some Coke in it, get a nice slushy mix in my Dolphins cup, and I just remember having that and listening to John Madden and Al Michaels on that Monday Night Football. And then, of course, I feel like most known for the Madden NFL EA Sports football game, and just something probably the most popular game I've played more than any other video game. And so even though he's not really as in it as much, he just has his name on it. I think they'll do really something special for John Madden for Madden 23 next year, and I hope they do him justice and put him on the cover and just make sure, bypass any player this year for being on the cover of Madden and just make this edition more, in memory of John Madden. And that's what I'm really looking forward to, is what the Madden video game franchise does to remember John Madden in that next video game. So I'm really excited to see what they do there. So obviously a great voice in sports. Very, very fantastic coach. Like I said, the highest winning percentage of any coach ever to coach at least 100 games. So he will certainly be missed, but now it's time to go take a complete 180 here and talk about some of the worst coaches in the league. And we're going to make our predictions on who is going to get fired in the NFL after this season. Black Monday is a couple weeks away, which is that Monday after the last Sunday in NFL, where a lot of coaches get fired. So on average, historically speaking, around 6 coaches get fired every year. 2 of them have already gotten fired, and that's Urban Meyer and John Gruden. So Nick and I, we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to give 4 more cool coaches who we think are going to see their last days with their respective team this year. So Nick, start us off. Who do you think is the first one to go?
First one I believe is going to go is in the AFC West, our Denver Broncos. I believe Vic Fangio dodged a bullet last year not getting fired. John Elway has not shied away from getting rid of coaches he doesn't feel like is getting the most out of his roster. And unfortunately for Vic, Teddy Bridgewater had injury issues, also can be a little gun shy. And that performance against the Raiders, I mean, they were lucky to be as close as they were in the game. They were just they called you out, they dared you to do something, and the Broncos had no answers whatsoever. So I believe Vic he will finish out the season, but I believe he will be gone from Denver this season.
Yeah, I agree there. And staying in the West, but I'm going to jump to the NFC West. I think Pete Carroll in Seattle is done. I think he's not the only one done in Seattle. I think Russell Wilson is done as well. I think that franchise will see a complete rehaul starting next year. And I think Pete Carroll, I think he's seen his last days in Seattle. So that's my next one. Who do you have at number 3 here?
Number 3, the one we've been calling for quite some time, Matt Nagy. The fact that he's still on the team is kudos to him, but he's also kind of said it too. He believes these are his last 2 games, and there's no doubt about it. The offense is no longer producing. He's supposed to be an offensive-minded guy, and just the team's in disarray, and it's just time to get a new regime in there to hopefully groom Fields to be your quarterback of the future, or figure out he's not to move on.
Yeah, Matt Nagy.
Sorry.
Matt Nagy will either find a new head coaching job right away, or he'll find a really good offensive coordinator job somewhere. But finally, I think I'm going to stay in the NFC North. I think Mike Zimmer, the Vikings, is going to be gone as well. He's been on the hot seat several times. They really had no excuse this year. They had the talent. They had the productivity. Kirk Cousins is really playing out of his mind this year. They just can't finish games. They can't win games. So that to me is more on coaching than anybody. So I think Mike Zimmer will kind of wrap this up. The 6 coaching firings for 2021. So now let's move to our picks. We've got a couple weeks left here in the NFL. We've got bowl games. We got the playoffs. Hopefully no more cancellations. There's been a lot of bowl games that have been canceled because of COVID. So we got to cross our fingers there. So let's jump right into our picks. Who do you got for your spread pick?
Well, for the college football champion or playoff games, I'm going to focus on the Michigan versus Georgia game, where the point spread is 7.5 points in favor of Georgia, and the over/under is 45.5. This game is going to be a tight game. It's going to be a very physical game because that's what Michigan will want to do. They will want to pound the ball. They will not want to rely on their passing game. Georgia is going to do everything they can to have a counterpunch and make sure they're imposing their will, because that's what's worked for them up until that SEC championship game, is when they impose their will. The game's well under control. That goes for any football team, of course. But I'm going to focus on the over-under here for the Georgia-Michigan game, just because the point spread's at 7.5. I feel like that's high, but I'm not feeling strong about either one team over the other. So I'm going to go with the over-under here in the 45.5 for the Michigan versus Georgia. And I'm going to say that point total is going to go over. Nathan, what are you seeing with the Cincinnati-Alabama game?
For the Cincinnati-Alabama game, so I initially thought, it was a 13.5 point spread, and I thought since you could cover that, I initially was thinking Alabama's going to win by a touchdown. But now I'm just kind of seeing like the SEC is 0-4 so far in bowl games. I know the SEC was very top heavy this year, so that doesn't really say too much, but still, it's just like you see Houston beat Auburn. And you saw how close Auburn played Bama and things like that. And I know that's a rivalry, but it's just, it says a lot. And so I think Cincinnati might make this game super close. Watch I be wrong on it's a blowout, but I initially had a Bama 7-point win. I think it could even be a 3-point win. I don't want to go as far as Cincinnati has a chance in this game, but I think a Cincinnati plus 13.5 is a very safe bet here. So that's what I'm going for. So now let's jump to our NFL picks this week.
In our NFL picks, for our spread picks, I'm looking at the Cardinals versus the Cowboys. Cowboys made a huge statement on Sunday Night Football by just demolishing the Washington football team. Well, the Cardinals are just limping to the finish line, and no better way to say that. So with the Cardinals struggling, the Cowboys, it's a 4.5-point spread in the Cowboys' favor, and I think the Cowboys cover that. Just nothing suggests that the Cardinals are really going to rebound that well. Kyler Murray looks like he's lost. He doesn't really know what to do. He's just trying to improvise as much as he can. And when you improvise more than you scheme, that spells disaster. What do you have for your spread, Nathan?
I think I'm turning more into a fan than just more of a sports analyst this week, but I'm going to do Miami 3.5. I think there's something special about this season for Miami, and just starting off 1-7 and then pulling off 7 straight, and now they control their own destiny to make the playoff is just crazy. No team has ever been 6 games below 500 and made the playoff, so they would make a lot of history there. So I'm maybe I'm a little overexcited about this team, but they know what's at stake. They're really playing very, very well, and there's a lot to like about this team. I know they're going to have to play basically flawless games, but that's 2 flawless games, but that's a little bit easier in my opinion than winning 7 in a row. So I think it's possible, and I think they're getting a Tennessee team that's a little beat up. They're getting a Tennessee team that I feel like has been struggling a little bit lately. And so I like Miami here, and they're playing their former quarterback. Now I think they've been separated for quite a bit to not really make this game as maybe an emotional game as it could be. But I think there's something there in that Ryan Tannehill playing his former team. So the Dolphins defense has been the best defense in the last 4 weeks in the NFL, and I think it could really give Ryan Tannehill and this Titans offense a lot of fits. So I like Miami this 3.5. I actually think Miami could win this game, but I'll take the 3.5.
Moving on to our over-under. For our over-under, I am picking probably the less appetizing matchup on the card this week of the Giants visiting the Bears. Giants have just, they don't know what to do anymore. They seem very lost. Point production has been scarce, to say the best, for them. Bears, depending on who their quarterback is, depends what they get. I mean, they did get a victory here against Seattle at Seattle, so it was very impressive there. And for me, I'm going over under for it because last week we went Jets and Jaguars, and I mean, that turned out pretty well. So I'm going 38.5 is the over under for Giants visiting the Bears. And I'm going to say they're going to go over 38.5, not by much, but they're going to do it. What do you have, Nathan?
I'm going to stick with the Miami-Tennessee game. That's over under 41. Like I said, I think Miami makes this close. I think their offense is going to be able to put up some good numbers, and I think Tennessee also has a pretty good offense as well. So I'm going to pick the over 41, and simply because I don't think Tennessee just kind of routes Miami here. I think Miami makes it a fight, and in order, if Miami's making it a fight, it's not going to be like a 17-13 game. I see it more like a 27-24 sort of game, so I'm going to pick the over the 41.
All right, moving on to our money line. Nathan, what do you have for your money line this week?
I'm going to pick Vegas to win over the Colts. Carson Wentz is on the virus list. Not sure if he'll be back or not. I know they shortened that time. So I'm not sure if he's going to be back or not. But like I said, I think I'm more talking with more as a fan than as a true sports analyst this week. I think there's something about Miami, and they need I think they could use a little help by the Colts losing. But I do think with the virus hitting Wentz and everything, at the very least, he's not going to be able to practice with the team this week. And so I think Vegas, I think they're going to end their season fairly well. I mean, they're still in the playoff hunt as well. So I think it's 2 teams that are fighting for life, and Vegas has been playing well lately. So I think this is a really good opportunity for Vegas, and I think they can take advantage of Wentz not playing and getting a rookie Sam Ehlinger quarterback and winning this game.
Yeah, that's a great pick. It was one I wavered on, but Raiders can be so Jekyll and Hyde. It just it scared me away. So I'm looking at the Sunday night or Monday night football game. Excuse me, the Monday night football game of Browns versus Steelers. Browns just they just don't have they have an identity of running the ball, but unfortunately they have to throw it once in a while too. Steelers beat them last time. Steelers just can play these tough, gritty games. Kansas City notwithstanding, but I just feel like Steelers are going to get the upset here. It's at Pittsburgh. Browns just whatever mojo they have, they just don't seem to be able to keep it captured and keep rolling with it. So I think the Steelers pull out the upset this week in Pittsburgh. Then we go on to Sunday Night Football, where we have the Vikings against the Packers. A few weeks ago, this was quite the shootout. Nathan, what are you seeing for this game?
Vikings and say that one more time.
Vikings versus the Packers at Green Bay.
Is this a Sunday night game?
Yes, this is a Sunday.
Oh my! I thought it was Cleveland Pittsburgh.
I don't think it is. I thought it was.
That's Monday night. I apologize. Okay, so back it up. I did the Monday night game. Back it up here. Like I said, guys, we are live. Sorry for the difficulties here. So okay, Green Bay -6.5. Totally taking the -6.5 here for Green Bay. Really controlling their own destiny for that one seed. I know they struggle a bit against Minnesota, but they've already lost to Minnesota this year, so they're not going to lose to them twice. So I like Green Bay in this game.
Yeah, I like Green Bay as well, but I do not think they get above the 6.5. Unfortunately, they just let teams creep back in. They let the Ravens creep back in, and they let Cleveland creep back in. They just they get enough ahead, and then they just let teams kind of get the points they want to, but they ultimately know they have it in hand. I think that's what the rationale is. Probably isn't, but I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I do think Green Bay ultimately is the winner, but I think the Vikings cover the 6.5. Now we're moving on to our wild card. Nathan, what are you seeing for your wild card this week in Week 17?
Yeah, so I'm going to go to the Houston-San Francisco game. Looks like Jimmy Garoppolo could be out, meaning Trey Lance plays. I know they've been playing well lately, but I just saw Houston do a number there on Los Angeles. This is a team that always felt actually it's a little bit better than what the record shows. They've just been hit with a lot of distractions, obviously with the whole Deshaun Watson thing and then some injuries and stuff. But I really think this is a team that's probably, if they start the season over, could be like a 500 team. So they're going to go to San Francisco and play a very beat up San Francisco team. And I think has been playing above kind of what they're really, where they're really at. So I think you're going to see San Francisco take a step back and Houston continue to rock it, kind of rocking with that momentum from before. I'm not going to say Houston's going to beat San Francisco, but to get 12.5 points, I think that's going to be it's not going to be that bad for them. So especially if Trey Lance is playing at Jimmy Garoppolo. So I like Houston to get those 12.5 points there at San Francisco.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting what Houston was able to do last week against the Chargers, a team we felt like all season was kind of on the rise, on the cusp of being a contending team, and then they kind of do what they did. So for me, my wild card, I'm going to look at one of the matchups I feel is kind of one of the marquee ones on the card based on how the teams are trending. Both teams are on the rise, and that would be the Kansas City Chiefs coming into Cincinnati to face the Bengals. This game looks like it could be a playoff preview if both teams keep going where they're going. I mean, Kansas City is in the playoffs, but can Cincinnati do enough to be in the playoffs? As Nathan and I alluded to, the AFC North, it's looking more and more like the winner of the division is going to get in, but everyone else may be on the outside looking in, especially in Nathan's fandom case. He's hoping that's kind of the scenario. So for me, looking at the Kansas City-Cincinnati game, hopefully it's a good game. I think it will be. And so I'm looking at it and trying to decide where do I go. Cincinnati had this awesome offensive output against the Ravens. Can they replicate it? And I mean, to get over 500 yards and multiple touchdowns isn't an anomaly. It's that many yards. Not that they didn't. They just saw something that the Ravens were vulnerable at, and they capitalized on it. Kansas City is playing sound football and doing well. So I'm going to go with the spread here. The spread is at 4.5. And I'm going to say Kansas City covers, because when Kansas City wins, they win by a touchdown or more. They don't really like to keep their games close. They like to put it out of reach so that you become predictable and they know what you're doing. Could I see it going the other way? Absolutely. But I'm feeling better about the 4.5 in Kansas City's favor, so I'd say they cover this week.
All right, sounds good. Is there any other last minute picks or news we need to break?
Nothing else that's coming up on my radar here. At just the New Year's upon us. When this is released, you'll have a day or so to kind of have your rejoicings and kind of see what's going on with your team. See if the dreams of a new year is beneficial to your team, or is it time to rebuild? So thank you so much for tuning in to our episode this week, episode 47. We are the Sports Forecasters. You've been listening to Nathan Singer. I'm Nick Alvarez, and we'll see you next time.